Good morning. I would like to call this meeting to order of the Legislative and Budget Committee, and if we can ask staff to call the roll.
Good morning. This is Marcine. Reese Isbell.
Here.
Megan Ellis.
Here.
Derek Matos.
Good morning, here, present.
And Calamy Pham.
Good morning, here.
Thank you. All members are present.
Thank you very much. Our first item on the agenda are the minutes from the last meeting. Do any members have any comments on the minutes?
I had no comments. I'm ready to move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. I'll ask staff to call the roll for the motion.
This is Sabina. We need to go out for public comment on each motion.
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you for the reminder. We'll open it to public comment for the motion on the minutes.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If you have any comment or question about the minutes, you may either raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon in the WebEx app, or go to the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your screen or behind the 3-dot other options, and type the word comment and click send. And each person will have 2 minutes to speak, and we'll give a 15-second warning. And I have no request for public comment. Shall I go ahead and close the Q&A?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. If we could have staff call the roll.
Okay, to approve the minute motion, Reese Isbell.
Yes.
Megan Ellis.
Yes.
Derek Matos.
Yes.
And Calamy Pham.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Motion passes with the 4.
Thank you. Our next item is review of the board's budget. If we could have the executive officer provide a brief overview of the budget, that would be great.
Thank you. Good morning. So in your packets is our current budget. What we've provided is our budget projections. And then the second page is our fund condition. This budget that you're looking at today is the same that was provided in the board meeting, but I want to just give a little more input to some of you, especially if you're fairly new to our board. So we work with the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office. We have an assigned budget analyst at the department, and they provide us on a regular basis our expenditures and our projections. So if you look at the first page, you'll see the top part is our personal services. That's all our staffing issues, our per diem for board members, any overtime that we would spend, all the benefits that we pay to employees. So that's considered personal services. The budget's broken down into 2 pieces: personal services and operating expenses and equipment. And this budget is set, the fund condition on the next page, it's set through the governor's office, through the Department of Finance. And then the budget office within DCA monitors the budget. We monitor it internally as well. We monitor our spending. And then we base projections through our actual spending and then through historic spending every year. Like, we are pretty standard for how much we spend in postage and in printing. So it's pretty consistent budget. We are obviously one of the healthier budgets in the Department of Consumer Affairs. So I can tell you that we're not a priority, but I don't mean that in a bad way. That's a good thing for the Department of Consumer Affairs. So they obviously, our budget analyst handles multiple boards and bureaus. And so they know that ours is a healthy budget, so that they probably have some clients that don't have a healthy budget. So those are getting probably a little more attention than what ours would. We try to get our projections to us. They try to get our projections to us monthly. It doesn't always happen But again, because we're a healthy budget, we kind of fall to the lower of their list, which is completely understandable because they have some programs that have to be watched very closely. As for that, any changes that we wanted to make to the budget have to be done through the budget process. So, for instance, we have an allocated number of positions. If we wanted to provide additional positions, if we wanted to seek additional positions, we would have to fund that through what's called the budget change proposal process. And it starts a year in advance, if not longer. And we start working on that with the budget office way ahead of time. And then it takes a couple of years to actually get through the entire process because it has to be approved through multiple levels, as well as the Department of Finance, and then would ultimately be approved in the governor's budget each year. As for that, that's about all we have on our budget.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have two short questions. Christy, thank you for that report. I see there's a line here that says the board is scheduled to revert, it looks like 1,618,000 at the top. And that's a little different than what's listed at the bottom under net appropriation. I'm just curious about the difference between those two numbers. And then just the second question I had was, I know we had mentioned previously that we were looking at our fees because our fund is so healthy. And I'm just wondering where we are in that process and how long that will take. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So there's a couple things with the reversion. It's really our budget right now is very I want to use the word unstable, but in a good way, because we're not obviously in any way, shape, or form a concern. But because we've had so many changes because of SB 803, all of our numbers are going to be fluctuating every month with how much we revert, with how much how they do all the calculations. We're still paying rent on our Glendale examination site because we were in a lease. We're hoping to get out of that now because that building has just sold. So that's going to change our reversion. There's all kinds of factors that go into those different numbers. And so I can say that normally our budget is very solid and doesn't change because of some of those issues we've had with SB 803, the stopping of our exam sites and the stopping of the pre-application process. We're going to see a lot of those fluctuations throughout probably the next year. And we are doing a fee study. We had hoped to have that completed by September. That will not likely happen. We had a meeting with the Department of Consumer Affairs budget office, who has a staff person that assists us with that. And they have a list of other boards and bureaus that are working on fee studies that are looking at dire needs of fee increases. So they are obviously more important so that they don't lose money from their fund. We are anticipating probably first of the year that we will have that completed.
Thank you, Christy.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. There's no motion here. Do we still take public comment on this, Sabina?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If you would like to make a comment on the budget report, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon in the WebEx app. If you are a dial-in connection, you can use *3 to do that. Or we've opened up the Q&A feature. If you look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, and in the text box, you would write the word comment and click send. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, and that's referring to all the legislation that the board has been monitoring. And I'll ask Christy to provide an update on that as well.
Okay, so not too many changes from the last meeting, but there are a couple that have had some action. We will start with AB 645. This is a bill that was regarding expunged convictions.
646.
I'm sorry, AB 646. This is a bill regarding expunged convictions that the board took a support position on. This bill was in committee. It had been referred to the suspense file, and as of Friday, I did not see it move. So not sure that is going to be moving, but we'll continue to watch it.
Christy, can I ask a general question before we move on?
Sure.
What is the calendar for the next 2 months? Like, what is the expected date that things have to be passed by and given to the governor?
I believe August 30th, but I'm not positive.
So soon.
Yes. And then the governor has until mid-October, I believe.
Okay. So then on any of these, this is potentially our last committee meeting before the end of the session.
Yes.
And unless we had something to say to the governor following that. I just wanted to clarify timing. Thank you very much.
And we would clarify, we would provide our position unless something happened that a bill changed that would have changed the board's position from the time the session ends to the time the governor signs it. We would provide our position to the governor's office.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next bill, which is AB 1604. And this bill is the bill that talked about our board member makeup and requiring the boards. This is obviously a global bill, not just impacting our board, but it talks about diversity on through the board membership. We think we're quite diverse. So we did take a watch position on this bill, and this bill on August 11th, so this is an update from what was provided in your packet, was approved out of committee, and it's now been read the second time, so it's probably getting ready to go to third reading and then eventually to the governor's office.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next bill, which is AB 1661. This is a bill that was chaptered, and this bill is regarding the sign that is posted in salons regarding human trafficking. So this bill has been already signed by the governor, and we're currently looking to put this information on our website to assist people in having that information posted. It's not the sign is not something that we're required to send out. So we will just look at this as an educational bill and make sure that our licensees get as much information as we can get out there that this human trafficking notice has to be posted.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed, I'm sure we'll talk about this as well in our education committee, just as far as next steps related to the signed legislation. Do we have, I didn't see any online. Was there any message from the governor, or I just saw it that it was signed?
There was not.
Yeah, okay. And so thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So does that mean anything for us on the inspection side? So we're just posting to our website, and is it going to be something that we are going to be looking for? Okay.
It's not. We will just, we're going to be the vessel in a sense to let people know about it,
Okay.
but it did not give us the authority to actually inspect for it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to AB 1733. This bill is dead. This was the bill that was changing our Open Meetings Act to allow us to have meetings like we're having today, which is virtual. That bill died, but it's okay because we got it in a different bill. So we'll go ahead and move on to AB 2196. This is the bill of choice of the day. This is our bill that started off in the assembly and has extensive, not too extensive, cleanup language for SB 803. So this bill was read the second time. We're expecting it to be ordered to third reading any day and then ultimately onto the governor's office. Not a lot of impact to us, but definitely some needed cleanup that we needed from SB 803.
Great.
See, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
In regard to this bill, was there further discussion about the compensation for externships? Because I noticed it in the bill, it does state about compensation, but was there discussion in regard to what that compensation would be, being as though an extern or even an apprentice for that matter is not licensed? So how would that work as far as salons and barbershops and so forth?
So SB 803 allowed for compensation for cosmetologists. It didn't specify what that compensation should be, and it didn't specify that it necessarily was required, but it just allowed the option for an extern to be compensated for being in the salon and providing services. So what this bill does is include barbers in that for the exact same thing. So it would allow a barber extern to receive compensation should they participate in that program.
Thank you for the clarification. So at this point, just from a consumer standpoint, is there the ability to insert more information?
Derek, you cut out there at the end.
Pass that
So
information. The reason why I ask is because if you were to go into a salon, say for instance for yourself to get your hair done, excuse me, can you hear me?
we can hear you now, but sorry, you cut out a lot.
Can you hear me, Christy?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Apologies. Apologies. Wi-Fi here is not that great. Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, we can hear you now,
Yes.
but we didn't hear your question. Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I was just, I just had that question. I just wanted to see if any discussion was made in that regard from a consumer standpoint, if you were to get, a color service or something. And obviously there's some adverse effects that may occur by having a student do that or an extern. Should the public be charged the same amount as if a, veteran professional were to be doing that service? So I was just curious about that. And I also have one more question, but I'll let you pass on to the first part.
So no, there was no specific discussion about that at all. I'm not sure that we would have the authority in our statutes to limit the cost of services as from a extern to a fully licensed person. They do have to identify themselves as an extern, and they do have to be 100% supervised while in the salon, but that's it.
Okay, thanks. So is it safe to say at this point that since it's not something that is we've been given the authority to do, the salon owners or the people that are facilitating these externships can then make their own decision based what's proper for their businesses?
Correct.
Thank you. And then my last question was in regard to the externship time. Was there further discussion from going from the 25% mark to the anything further? Reason being, I think 25% is not enough education to put them in there and would hold burden to both the public as well as salon owners.
No, there wasn't any discussion, especially for this bill. The SB 803 is the bill that changed those minimum requirements. And that was actually in another bill, and that bill got combined into SB 803 since it was our sunset bill. I don't recall any specific discussions about those minimum percentages. It increased. And you know, it's interesting because that increased at the same time that the hours decreased. So there's that as well. So externs are basically getting into a shop quicker. However, this bill only mirrored the cosmetology. So it when SB 803 made those changes, they had completely left out barbering. So this particular bill was just to clean up and allow barbers the same that was done in SB 803 for cosmetologists.
Derek, I do recall that that was something that we discussed, and that we all, as a board, we thought 25% was low. And I remember that being one of the recommended changes we had when the bill was kind of working its way through. And I think they decided not to adopt that suggestion from us. But we did note when it was going through that we thought it was low.
Correct. And thank you for that, Kelly, and thank you, Christy.
All right. Any other questions on this bill, AB 2196?
And so we previously had a position of support if amended. Are we clarified now on that?
Our position still remains support if amended. We had two tiny little items that we wanted also added that did not get added. Those, I don't believe those items at this point will get added. So we will not change our position because that would be this committee's recommendation to the board, which the board won't meet in time for that. Those two items that we wanted added, I will continue to try to get in a cleanup bill for the following year.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the last bill, which is SB 189. This bill has been chaptered, and this is the bill that allowed us to operate in virtual meetings that we are doing today. So this bill is we're super positive because we're able to do this virtually, and that's all we have for legislation. Unless there's any more questions.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we don't have a motion, but I will open it up to public comment on the legislative matters.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone has any comment about the legislation, we would welcome that. And we do have a request for comment from someone who's logged into WebEx as Colette Kavanaugh. And Colette, I'm going to unmute you and you will have 2 minutes. All right, I'm sending you a request to unmute. And you're unmuted.
Hello, my name is Colette Kavanaugh, BBC delegate for the California Electrologist Association of California. The following language about electrology or electrolysis needs to be amended in Bill AB 2196 as it's inaccurate. Under barbering, cosmetology, and skincare, the language for hair removal needs to be amended to state the additional language of, because at the end it says except by the use of lasers and light waves, but it also needs to say and electrical hair removal, including commonly known as electrolysis, thermolysis, and blend technique. Additionally, electrolysis is defined inaccurately in the bill. This needs to be amended to state electrology is the study of permanently removing hair from or destroying hair on the human body by the use of an electric needle only. Electrolysis, thermolysis, blend technique are the actual process of removing hair. Lastly, the health and safety component we learn in electrology school is not like barbering, cosmetology, or skincare. AB 2196 does not state sterilization for electrology, and it needs to for the safety of the public. Electrologists must have sterilization included in instructional hours due to the prevention of bloodborne pathogens such as hepatitis and HIV. Needle sticks and other sharp-related injuries like the sharp tweezers we use may expose workers to bloodborne pathogens. Additionally, this will expose clients to infectious diseases. And sterilization protects the consumer and needs to remain. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next request for public comment is from someone logged into WebEx as Wendy Cochran. Wendy, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you will have 2 minutes. And you're unmuted.
Good morning. Thank you for this meeting. I just want to clarify that in AB 1661, when you will be starting to enforce this or if it will remain as educational only. Also in AB 2196, it's noted that the wage postings are supposed to be posted in all of our establishments. We're starting to see citations for them having been available in a binder for an inspector in a solo environment with just one licensee. So we're kind of concerned about how that's being handled. And if you will have the same requirement come with regards to AB 1661, even though it's just been stated that there's no authority to inspect, if that will be added into the language of 2196. Thank you for correcting the language in AB 2196, disallowing hairstylists to provide facial and aesthetic services. And also, I just want to note, though, in 2196, that cleanup language about what we can do as licensees, as estheticians in our skincare services, noting body parts, you know, the arm, the leg, the face, the upper part of the body will continue to remain confusing for people, and they will continue to ask you, unless you specifically work on this in the regulations, if they are allowed to do what's known as vajacials or intimate bleaching services, such as anal bleaching and services around
15 seconds.
vajacials as well. So those are just some considerations that you should probably think about in maybe making some adaptation to that language. Thank you.
And our next request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx under the name Crystal. Crystal, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 2 minutes. You're unmuted.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm an electrologist in San Jose, California. Yeah, well, obviously, and I keep hearing that there's a possibility that beauticians and barbers might be able to become electrologists with a lot less training, a lot less than the 600 hours of training we receive from our schools. And I just want to, if this is the appropriate forum, I want to say that that's a really, really, really bad idea. When I graduated, I got 600 hours of really amazing training, a lot of time working on actual humans and, you know, removing their hair using the follicle, you know, every follicle one.
Sounds like your voice cut out.
Would have loved a couple hundred more. And I just think it's a
Okay.
really awful idea if that's what's being considered. Thank you.
All right. And our next request for public comment comes from someone logged in to WebEx as Fred Jones. Fred, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 2 minutes. You're unmuted.
I just wanted to respond to Derek Matos' question regarding externship hours and the brief conversation you had. I did speak with some legislators and staff regarding externship hours and what's required before a student could qualify to become an extern in a salon setting. And in the prior legislation that Ms. Underwood referenced, the reason why it dropped it from 60% down to 25% of their schooling being completed was in direct relationship to apprenticeship. At the time, the apprentices were only required to receive 39 instructional hours before they could go to work in the salon for pay full time. Whereas an extern is limited to how many hours in a day and in a week that they can work, and how many hours total they can work. And so 25% of a 1,000-hour program is 250 hours. So the few conversations that I had with policymakers in the legislature, they said, they had no problem dropping it down to 25% because that's 250 hours compared to an apprentice that only has 39. So just wanted to clarify some of the few conversations that I had with policymakers around that issue. Thank you very much.
And our next request for public comment comes from someone logged into WebEx as Lisa. Lisa, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 2 minutes. And you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lisa Ruley, and I am an electrologist in the Los Angeles area. And I would just like to make a point that the study of electrology, the profession should stay within the approved schools that teach electrology only. The procedures that electrologists perform is medical. What we do is invasive, and we work 3 layers under the skin surface into the subcutaneous layer. So this profession really needs to be taught in a controlled medical environment. Also, I hear from so many electrologists that when they graduated from electrolysis school, they wanted to stay longer because they felt there was more time to learn. They wanted more time to learn and needed more practice. When I graduated, I also felt the same. There has been talk about possibly estheticians, cosmetologists, barbers crossing over. I feel it's a very bad idea. Many of us feel that the educational hours need to be increased, not decreased. Therefore, there should not be any hours allowed to cross over into electrolysis. Lastly, there most definitely should be a practical exam in our profession, and also for the written exam, questions also need to be increased substantially. Thank you.
And we have one last request for comment from someone logged into WebEx under the name Lydia. Lydia, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone so you may ask your questions. And Lydia has typed in 2 comments. It looks like she may be unable or unwilling to unmute. Lydia's first typed comment was the quality of electrologists and ability to keep the standards of this industry high. Oh, Lydia, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. The AB 2196 must flood the industry with electrology, and many of them who will not be able to do this properly without sufficient training. So this would affect not only themselves, but the public as well. Thank you.
Was everyone able to hear that okay? The sound was quiet, but okay. All right, at this point, there are no further requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A?
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. We had quite a number of public comment that time, so that's wonderful. Thank you all for participating. I would also just remind folks that as any public person in the state of California can do, anyone wanting to make some comments about legislation can always talk to the author's office of the bill and legislation directly. And make their comments then known there as well. Any other further comment from my colleagues on this agenda item? All right, then we will move to the next agenda item. At this point, we'll open the meeting up to public comment on any items that were not on the agenda and that the public would like to bring up to our committee in the future. Just a reminder that this is public comment and we aren't able to discuss or engage in conversation.
This is the moderator, and we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. You may, in order to make a comment for an item that has not appeared on the agenda, you can either raise your hand with the hand icon or click on the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, type the word comment, and click send. And I see no requests for comment on items not on the agenda.
Okay, we'll close it out then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The final, or the next agenda item is future agenda items. So we have tentatively scheduled our next meeting September 17th, I believe, for the committee. And I know that we were looking at some ideas for that meeting. Christy, do you have any updates about that for us at this point?
No, just it's September 19th that we're tentatively scheduled for.
Sorry.
That's okay. And we were attempting to try to get a presentation on kind of a high level state budget review, but we DCA was not able to accommodate that date.
Okay.
So given kind of the agenda items that we've gone over and that we're at the end of the legislative session, I don't know if it makes sense to have the September 19th meeting. I think if we were to have a meeting, it would make sense to have it there. We have quite a few committee meetings scheduled for October 10th, I believe. So if we did have a meeting, I think that date would make more sense. But I would question whether at this point it makes sense given, that there are no new bills coming and then the update about the budget. Probably the main item would be the fee study, which Chrissy already explained probably won't be ready or available until the beginning of next year. So those would be my thoughts. I don't think that we need the September 19th meeting.
I'm in agreement. And Christy, do we have, she mentioned October 10th. Do we have other meetings on that date?
We do. We have every other meeting, every other committee on that day.
Would there be time for us to have a meeting that day? Or is it too booked?
We could do that. I just don't know what our agenda items would be.
Callie Mae, did you have any ideas for October?
No, actually, my thought would be to wait till the beginning of next year when everything is kind of started back up again. And again, I think it makes sense to align our meetings closely with the board meetings so that any information we review or any recommendations we have are as up to date as possible for the entire board.
Great. I would be in agreement as well. I think the session is almost over in just like 2 weeks. And there's not much left to talk about in relation to bills that are dying or potentially over at this point, but that we will have a lot of comments coming in as we know about new legislative matters coming up, and particularly given interest that we've heard from our community on legislative matters. We will certainly want to have some more conversations as we get closer to the next session on what legislation is being pursued. So I also agree. I don't think we need the September meeting for this committee. Other committee members?
I agree.
Okay. Do we need to go through any specific motion to cancel that, or do we just say that here?
No, this is Sabina. You can just, the staff will remove it from the website if it's even up there, and then they'll reach out later, closer to the end of the year, to start scheduling another meeting after the session starts.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Obviously, we'll have the elections in November, and then the new session members will start in early December. So we'll have a lot of work happening at the very end of the year, beginning of the next year. So we'll certainly want to get prepared for that. Okay, thank you. Do I open this up to public comment for future agenda items?
If you would like, yes.
Yes. All right. Open it up for public comment then.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we're displaying instructions on the screen. If anyone has a future agenda item to suggest, you may either raise your hand using the hand icon in the WebEx app, or you can look for the question mark icon and type the word comment into the text box and click send. Each person will have 2 minutes to suggest a future agenda item. And I see, Wendy Cochran would like to make a comment. Wendy, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello. I would love for the committee to take into consideration searching an author to sponsor a supervised aesthetics bill. As I have discussed multiple times throughout the meetings, we continue to be misclassified and shoved out of our scope of practice by med spas. Those are all labor violations that are being largely ignored. And when we are told that we have to do microneedling, we either choose to work out of scope or we choose to lose our jobs. This is something that the committee needs to seriously consider. Microneedling has now been made legal in the state of North Carolina. I realize that they don't have as many people that are licensed as we do out here in California, but around the country, other estheticians in other states are able to do things like microneedling, doing radio frequency, doing other things either on their own in their own treatment rooms, or they are doing them under the supervision of medical professionals as employees. And this is something that would be very, very important because honestly, people are out there doing it on their own without having this supervision, without having it covered by insurance. And that is very concerning for the safety of the general population because it's a very popular service. We have clients that want it and need it. And so a lot of people that are practicing aesthetics, either cosmetology or estheticians, are out there doing these services without it being in statute, regulated, or even insured. I want you all to understand that this is very popular. I'm sure Christy and her staff can share you how many reports of microneedling come into the board.
15 seconds.
So thank you very much for your consideration, but we need a bill with supervised aesthetics. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see no other requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were there any other further comments from committee members? With that, I believe we are adjourned.